Good day. My name is Mike Weaver, and I'm one of the product managers at Quest. I'm really excited today to be at M365 Chicago and joining you on your break here to talk about some of the solutions that we have to offer at Quest. And particularly today, I'm going to be talking about our Office 365 tenant-to-tenant migration solutions. Let's hop in. On the agenda today, we're going to talk about why we consolidate and just a lot of the drivers that all of us are familiar with. But really, what we're going to be focusing today is on case studies and real business outcomes of what we have from doing this. We're going to talk about notes from the field. So these are directly from case studies and outcomes of projects that we've been able to deliver at Quest in partnership with some of you that are actually attending the conference today. We're going to talk about some considerations that you need to have when you're looking at these solutions and the Quest view. We are going to be here all day in our digital booth, so certainly please stop by and say hello. And if there's anything that we can help with, please let us know. My name is Mike Weaver. I'm a senior product manager at Quest Software. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in the Office Apps and Services category. I specialize in merger acquisitions and divestitures, and also do quite a bit with PST and archive migration technology, something I've worked on for quite a time. So if any of that is of interest to you, please feel free to reach out. But when we talk about 2022 predictions and why we want to consolidate, it's been very interesting. The M&A market in the coronavirus pandemic has really kind of changed things in several different areas, speeding some up, slowing some down, and delaying others. In 2020, certainly when COVID started kicking off very aggressively, we really saw everything kind of stop around the world, and this included M&A activity. As the things continue to develop and as we certainly are living with it today and things are changing, 2021 was a bit lumpy. It had some periods where there was certainly some activity, but integration activity was not as constant as we've seen in years before. So we saw kind of like a lot of hurry up and wait in the market. And this made things kind of difficult because a lot of side processes and things continued to get created. And because whenever integration doesn't happen quickly, there's a lot of things that can happen. We talk about the number of deals, despite that there is an overall reduction in the number of merger acquisition divestiture deals, the market value in 2021 was generally the same. So really what this means is there were less projects, but the projects that executed were larger. And this kind of changes how we do things, particularly with the huge influx in Office 365 utilization. This meant that these really large players that are executing this activity is really making these projects more and more complicated. As we continue into 2022, there's also an increase focus on regulated firms and regulated M&A activity. This means certain antitrust legislation, certain challenges across the globe. And in fact, in 2021, we saw some very large M&A activity get held up by certain regulations and challenges. So we're going to see that, I think, in 2022, these are going to take a bit of a stall. It doesn't mean that they're going to stop, but we are going to see these firms and their integration plans be a little slow as they go through regulatory approval, and some may not get approved as well, as we see that trend likely continue in 2022. However, also in 2022, I think, and a lot of us agree here, that we're going to see an increase in unregulated firms and the integration. And this is fueled by just changing markets, changing times, and everything changing so quickly that traditionally increases M&A activity. Unfortunately, what we're also going to see is an increase of bankruptcy sales. And this is an unfortunate reality. We saw a little bit of this in 2021. We do understand that this is a reality of our market. So we're going to see a lot of firms picking up some books of business and doing some quick integration, and that will be interesting. For us as technologists, obviously it's a sad time to be addressing this, but as technologists, we will be stuck with tight budgets and a very interesting market in 2022. As we talked about, Office 365, Microsoft 365 utilization is very high, and it continues to be very, very sticky in organizations. This is the prime technology that we're seeing in the business space, and merging and divesting, combining these tenants is becoming really what we're going to see in 2022 continued, and it's just going to get more complicated. We talk about why we want to consolidate systems and what we want to do. We really want to talk about what's optimal for our organizations. I mentioned in the introduction, we were talking about the challenges of not integrating and these organizations going a longer period of time without integrating. It's not optimal for collaboration. And because of that, we see a lot of shadow IT and side things starting up, and that really isn't good, particularly when you want to be very agile and be able to move employees around and transfer and collaborate. It really can be problematic. From an IT security standpoint, we want to be able to focus on one footprint, have it controlled in one place, and be able to ensure that we're keeping that as secure as possible. When you are in multiple tenants, you need often that's multiple teams managing those tenants. It's multiple opportunities for things to go wrong. Certainly, in one, you have to get it right, and a lot of us are, here at forums like M365 to ensure that we're getting it right. But it's very difficult to control multiple tenants. We talk about discovery and compliance, having in one place. There's a lot of simplification in that. There's a lot of simplification in tools, and ensure that you're not missing data. When we talk about modern work models, when we're talking about merger acquisition and divestiture work, we are coming together for a reason, whether it's to launch a product, to be more efficient, whatever it may be. When we talk about that with modern work models, being in multiple tenants is very difficult. We live in hybrid organizations. The majority of our firms don't have the traditional top to bottom organization anymore. Certainly, some operations teams operate that way where you've got a team that's doing a bank of work with a traditional supervisor, but most of the knowledge worker community is hybrid. And many people here probably know and live that today, where you have your supervisor in your department, but you're working on several different projects with several different supervisors and several different people at once. This results in rapid job change. So organizations that with this hybrid structure, the job itself, even if you're not changing jobs, is in constant change. So you constantly need access to different areas, different data sets, and it also can spawn rapid product development. And certainly with the changing times in the world, organizations have had to be very, very agile in order to be successful. So together, this really puts organizations in the position where they need to consolidate as quickly as possible for several reasons to get the most out of their investment when they are doing merger acquisition divestiture work. Again, when we talk about top consolidation challenges, we're talking about the intense growth of Office 365, the new features that are coming out in Office 365, and how difficult it is to keep up and do the migration. And we're talking about doing the migration. The migration APIs are secondary to function. And this all together creates a very, very challenging situation for organizations that are doing merger acquisition work either rapidly or even just one large project a year or even less often. So it's really important that we review, these best practices, but also learn lessons from projects. And that's what we're hoping to do today, to talk about some of the projects that have executed that we've been able to talk about publicly. Very important when we talk about MAD, merger acquisition, divestiture. Divestiture is a totally different game. And when we talk about divesting or carving out parts of the mix, it's very, very difficult and very different. So that's selling a division or buying a partial division. Sometimes some country-specific carve-outs. So certain organizations are taking certain very specific country areas and putting them into those country-specific tenants for certain regulations. With multi-geo, this is becoming less and less common, but there still are certain reasons why firms want to do that, and we're still seeing that today. The other option is to prepare it for sale. So some organizations will purposely divest and carve out a segment of the business, understanding that they may sell that to another VC firm or whatever the plans may be. When we talk about divestiture planning, there's a good case that we're going to talk about in a minute here, but it's really important because you have to find all the data, and you've got to, your firm operated for a period of time without the plan of divesting, and that makes these projects very, very different. So it's important to understand what those challenges are and ensure that you are prepared for that. But let's hop into the real meat of the topic today, notes from the field. So these are case studies, examples that we can talk about. And there's two pieces that we're going to talk about. The main one is about pace and repeatability with a great case of care from CareRx that we can talk about. And these are case studies available on our website as well for even more detail than what we're going to review today. And how to make the complex easy. And that's first group, which is a complicated case study that we have. And there's actually several versions of this because there are several projects hidden inside this one. So let's talk about CareRx. When we talk about pace in organizations of M&A, firms are either in the category where they rarely acquire, so every couple of years they do a large acquisition, or they're constantly doing M&A activity, and oftentimes with acquisition comes divestiture as well. For firms that are doing constant M&A work, there's a struggle to keep that pace. It is really difficult to keep up, and if you're buying 4, 5, 10 firms a year, it's just a constant struggle to keep track of that mad space and keep everyone moving and keeping everything integrating, because often it's the same team members executing that. Firms will often try to create repeatable processes for similar work. And when we talk about Microsoft 365 tenants and integration and consolidation, those are similar. Certainly the configurations are very different, how people are using it are very different, but we want to try to make repeatable processes, at least in our scoping and these broad steps that we take every single time. Even small projects, though, take a lot of scoping and executing effort. And for those that have done this for quite some time, you know whether you're doing a 500 user migration, a 5,000 user migration, or a 25,000 user migration, a lot of the scoping work takes a similar effort. Obviously, when you hit a huge difference between 5,000 and 25,000, it is a different game. But in general, you're still going to have a 50 user project is going to be a very similar effort to a 500 user project when it comes to all the scoping and preparation work, if you're trying to do this without doing a lot of interruption to the end user community. We talk about all the inputs of how fast we can go. And when we say how fast, it's how many projects can we go at once? How many users can we go at once? How many waves? Or can we do multiple tenants at once? It really is the business change that's driving that, which is also the technology change that's going on in both organizations and the migration limitations that occur either through the software solution that you're using, the Microsoft limitations on the APIs, or several other limitations that may exist, whether the amount of help desk resources that are available. All of this comes together to define your pace. When we talk about CareRx is a specialty pharmacy provider serving about 92,000 residents in Canada. They quadrupled in size in less than 3 years, and this is a common story for organizations going through rapid M&A. Is they're doing that for growth. So quadrupling in size in 3 years is a very aggressive growth strategy, and being able to quickly integrate and grow together is very, very important. They had to do 1,600 users and 4 projects very, very quickly. And we've chosen this one to talk about today, not because 1,600 users certainly is doable, but projects in rapid succession is very, very difficult to execute. So if you have a chance, go ahead and click on the link there in the resources at the end and take a look. It's a really good case. But when we talk about specifically, we had 4 projects that hit very, very quickly. What made them even more difficult is they were partial acquisitions. So they were purchasing a divestiture from other firms to bring everything in together. And in several spaces, this is very common. There were multiple systems beyond Office 365 in play. Again, this is common, but what you want to try to do is automate as much as you can in what is the same across the projects. Also typical of divestitures and purchasing of divestitures are tight TSAs or transitional service agreements and timescales. This is a legal binding document for when you have to execute, when you have to migrate the users, how long they have to service, that each firm has to service the user community. And these are typically very tight and have very specific deadlines and penalties if they're not met. So organizations that are purchasing, particularly purchasing partial units, have to work very, very quickly. because of this, they needed a solution that was up and running very, very quickly, and that was why they seeked out a SaaS solution like the offering that we have at Quest for Quest on Demand. And they wanted, for this particular work stream of these 4 projects, they wanted support for all of the Office 365 workloads and Active Directory in one solution. And that was what was really attractive to using the Quest on Demand platform. When we talk about setting that pace and what they were going through, this is probably a lot of what they were calculating. And this wasn't one of my projects, but just knowing the space very well, this is what we can talk about. Whenever we're talking about pace, it's risk versus reward. When we talk about risk, it's talking about business delays and outages of moving very, very fast. And the reward is going quick, low collaboration disruption, and the business outcome of getting there as fast as possible. When we talk about the outcome for CareRx, collaboration is king in our modern org structures. And having everyone together under one roof was really a key part of them moving fast and being able to grow at this pace that they needed. They had strict compliance mandates because this is a healthcare company, and they really needed this project to execute on time because of that. And all of the upsides of the Quest on Demand solution is what gave that flexibility. And there's a great quote from John Stevens there that talks about the outcome of that project. And the outcome of this has allowed this firm and many firms to operate very, very quickly, execute these projects with good planning built into the tooling, with additional options available through some other solutions in the portfolio as well. When we talk about First Group is a leading provider of transport services in the UK and North America. It's made up of 5 divisions. They have a fleet of over 60,000 vehicles with over 2 billion passengers a year. They are a global company. The cases that we're talking about today is they had to spin off a division in the UK into its own UK tenant for certain reasons that they had to execute, that you can read about in the case study as well. And this forced them to move very, very quickly as well. And they needed to do so with no downtime. This is a transport company. For those that have done airlines and train operating and anything to do with transport, they're 24-hour operation, 24/7 operation centers. They need to be executed as quickly as possible so that people can continue to collaborate across the divisions, and they need everything as automated as possible so that they can move as fast as possible. They also need flexibility because this is a very changing environment and changing world, so they needed to be able to be very flexible in their scheduling and executing. They also were very, very tight on people. They only had 2 engineers to run this project, and they had to, again, run this very, very quickly. This was a combination of Quest on Demand and Migration Manager for Active Directory. So this allowed them to handle the on-prem machine management aspect and certain other pieces of it, as well as the Office 365 migration solution. They also leverage our domain coexistence functions of Quest on Demand to prevent downtime of the domain shift. And again, that's really important for organizations that have 24/7 operations because it really allows a lot of flexibility. You don't have to move users all at once. And for organizations where that's really important, that's a key part of that coexistence process. On-Demand migration, again, was used for quick data migration. It's a great SaaS solution that's up and running very, very quickly. And then for the really complex Active Directory migration tasks, they're able to leverage the Migration Manager for Active Directory components to manage the on-prem Active Directory migration pieces, including the computer management and migration aspects. For this particular project that's covered in this case study, it was able to deliver a united appearance to the external world immediately. That's where this domain coexistence is really important, and it was very important to the client that that was available. It also ensured seamless collaboration between the users regardless of their migration status. Because of all the automation that's in play, they were able to leverage a lot of the features that are available so that users could just operate. And that was really important so that it was just simple. And that's what we talk about, making the complex very simple in this application. Providing all sorts of granular options for moving groups or individuals, it really allowed them to focus on the business aspect of it and not so much the actual migration technology. As a result, it significantly reduces the business risks that they had and enabled them to have continued 24/7 operations throughout the project. And everyone was where they needed to be while they were enabled to communicate throughout. So there were not as many issues with crossing tenants because of the coexistence pieces. It really allowed for the project to be successful. And as you'll see in the case study, if you want to review it, there are several projects that executed with this client that were very happy. When we talk about the Quest view, the Quest On Demand platform is huge. I joined Quest from the Quadratech acquisition, and it's been really excited to see the tech from Binary Tree, Quadratech, and the existing Quest On Demand platform really grow and come together in the last year, even almost a year and a half now that we've all come together. And it's really an extensive platform to handle really anything that you have to deal with under one platform. It's really very, very powerful. So if any of these on the screen are of interest as you are dealing with your project, it certainly is worth investigating and looking into for your next project. And you don't have to take our word for it. If you look at the Gartner 2021 Market Guide for Cloud Office Migration Tools, if you look at Quest Binary Tree and Quadratech, they're all represented in the list, and there's some great quotes and feedback from Gartner on this. And you can try it out. So if you today have want to check out the migration solution and try out Quest On Demand, you go ahead and click on this link here, especially for the event, so that you can register and try your free trial. Certainly you can test out some of the features and see the extensive capabilities that have come out. There's been real focus on several of the workloads, especially Teams and SharePoint inside the product, to ensure that we are able to meet the migration needs of today in our complex world. There's also an extensive amount of resources available here for you to review, to go ahead and review all the case studies and ebooks and market guides and other information that's available. And if you want to learn more, you can go ahead and stop by our digital booth to say hello, and we can hop into your project in more detail and get in touch. Thanks for joining, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of M365 Chicago. Have a great day.